This is Philippe from The Brothers Dim. I wanted to apologize for the sound quality of my vocal on episodes 2 and 3. We have solved the problem, however, and everything should be all set for 4 and beyond. Uh, Please enjoy.
There's a bunch of crazy stories written by the Brothers Grimm. And now you're gonna learn all about them, listening to the Brothers Grimm.
Welcome, students and scholars, friends and folks. And I'm not sure, Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure we've ever come up with a solid, non-gendered, all-inclusive version of Ladies and Gentlemen. Do you?
Oh, my queer kids are going to be mad at me for not remembering what it is.
Oh, do you have one? Or do they?
I do. I can think of one.
I saw Friends and Folks, and I was like,
Crap.
I'm
Yeah,
all
they're
for it,
going to be
'cause
mad at me.
Okay, well, both of us are very trying hard to be all inclusive. I was gonna say ladies and gentlemen and everyone in between, but then I remembered that there are people that are not in between. So it's very close.
I learn things every day.
That's the journey, isn't it?
That is the journey.
Then I'm just going to start with story number 3, Our Lady's Child, and I am going to go through the plot. So we have a poor woodcutter, and I'm gonna actually stop right there.
Who needs a summary?
Before we get going to it, so fuck me if woodcutters were not the outright poorest class of person you could be in Germany. Because again, I'm like 30-40 stories in, and anytime they're talking about who like why someone has to abandon their child. Or what are we gonna do? We're so poor, we have to eat the child. I guess the problem is because I'm a woodcutter. I don't know if it's just like a thing where it's like a lack of skill. And I mean, like, nothing against the good people who work at McDonald's, because I recognize it's a hard job, but how other people point it out as a McJob. Or this,
Right.
Oh, these poor people, they just work at McDonald's, but the idea of a minimum wage, low skill worker, I don't know. It just, but even, what's funny is like, if the lowest of the low in Germany could afford a house. So
True. Yep.
yeah.
Or did he just build it?
Or maybe,
Being a woodcutter and all.
but yeah. But I'm wondering too, like, was it back in the day when you were chilling at the tavern and you ordered a mead? Well, no, actually, it's Germany. In the area too, they had beer. They had beer for that year. So you order a beer, and you're eating some Schweinfleisch, and a pretty girl walks over to you and says like, "Oh, yeah, I like what I see. What do you do?" And you say, "Well, I'm a woodcutter." And she's like, "Oh, bye," and then dips because woodcutters are poor.
Yeah, is it just the archetype of the lowest class, or is woodcutter literally the bottom of the ladder there?
It's the bottom of the German ladder, as far as I can tell. Weirdly enough, in the early 1800s in Germany, they could do nothing else. That's all they got. So I don't even know, like, because everyone can just go cut down their own fucking trees. Maybe it's like a luxury in a time when people didn't have a lot of luxuries. Maybe, I'm not sure.
Maybe.
But okay, woodcutter is poor. He's living with his wife, has a little girl who's 3 years old. They're running out of food, no idea how to get more. The woodcutter goes out chopping wood one day, and a tall, very pretty woman with a crown of shining stars just appears in the forest and says hello. And she says, "It is I, the Virgin Mary, Jesus' mom. You're poor. If you bring me your kid, I'll take care of her and I'll be her mom." And she didn't even say if, actually. She said, she was just like, "I'm the Virgin Mary and you will bring me your child. And then she'll be my daughter, you poor woodcutting sack of shit." And there's not a lot of buildup. I'm just going to point out, there's not a lot of buildup to, hello.
Behold.
Hello. I'm the Virgin Mary. Woodcutter says, okay, well, better do what she says on account of her being God's mom. So gives her the kid. They go off to Mary's house, and Mary's house is in heaven, and we can get into that later, I suppose.
Oh, I have notes.
Okay, yeah. So they dip off to heaven for 11 years, and through these years, so the girl till she's 14, the girl's eating cake, playing with angels. I guess did an ascension, but Mary then's like, okay, it's been a fun 11 years. I have to go out. I don't even know the girl. First of all, I don't know if you noticed this, but the girl does not have a name. No one gets names.
That's true.
There's a couple names that come up eventually.
Faithful
And
Henry.
even Faithful Henry. Yeah, exactly. But I digress. The Virgin Mary is like, okay, I gotta go. Here's the house keys. And by the way, there's 13 keys here. There's 13 doors. So you can open 12 of the doors with these keys. But the little key here and that little door over there, that one you can't open. So don't go opening it or you'll regret it. Bye. So Mary fucks off. The girl starts opening doors. And behind each one of the doors is one of the apostles who've just been hanging out in one of the Virgin Mary's closets.
As one does.
And her and her little angel friends are delighted every time they meet an apostle. Because they're just like, oh, yeah, it's Doubting Thomas or James the Greater, who I always wanted to meet. And, oh, I don't know, Simon the Zealot. And I could go on for all the apostles, but I'm not going to. She makes the rounds. And also with 12, presumably also meeting Judas.
I had a question about that as well. Actually, we can get into that one.
They don't mention Judas by name, but I've done the numbers. I've done the math.
If my math is correct.
They don't really talk about who's there. Finally, she gets to the 13th door and says, okay, well, I know the Virgin Mary told me not to open this door. But she opens the door. And there behind that door is the Holy Trinity. So Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And the Virgin Mary's son, she's blown away. She stares at a bit and then just touches them. And when she does so, her finger turns to gold. Tries to go wash her finger, but to no avail. Her finger is now gold. And then Mary comes back home. Mary sees the finger. Is like, hi, little girl. Did you open the forbidden door? And the girl's like, no. She's like, are you sure? She says, yes. Because your finger's gold, and there's only one way that your finger could be gold. So are you sure you're not lying? She's like, no, I didn't open the door. I didn't see nothing. I didn't touch it. And he's like, all right, well, you're a fucking liar. So I'm kicking you out of heaven. Back down to earth you go. And in addition to that, I'm taking away your ability to speak. And you're going to live in a tree surrounded by thorn bushes all alone. And all you're going to eat are nuts and berries. And so off you go. So she does. She goes down to her tree surrounded by thorns. All her clothes eventually fall off because it's torn by thorns. And a couple of years pass. So 2 or 3 years of her living in this tree. So she's like now 16 or 17. And wouldn't you know it, in Grimm's, a king shows up who sees a naked, nubile, skinny, hot thing who can't speak and is like, I must have her. Little girl, would you like to come with me? She's like, yeah, okay, yeah, this is better than living in a tree. So they get married, and after a year, so maybe 18 at that point, good for them. After a year, she has a kid. Mary comes back, then all of a sudden she's like, okay, I know it's been 3 years, but you opened that door, right? I'll let you talk for a minute. But if you lie, I'm going to take your baby. But don't lie and tell me you opened the door, right? And touched God. And the girl quadruples down. It's like, nope, I didn't do that. So the Virgin Mary's like, all right, liar. Then I'm taking your baby. Takes the baby. And then in the background, rumor mill starts flying that the girl ate the baby because she went into the room. There was a baby. She came out, baby's gone. She can't speak. But so what happened? The only possible explanation is the girl ate the baby. But the king is super into her. He's like, no, she didn't eat the baby. You're all fucking crazy.
I don't need to know what happened to the baby.
I don't need to know. I don't, but she can't tell me what happened to the baby, but I don't think she ate the baby.
And besides, we could make more.
We can make, yeah, it's pretty easy. She's, again, still pretty hot and skinny. Another year goes by, and carbon copy of the last story, which again, that happens a lot too, but she gets pregnant, has a baby. Mary comes down. The girl quintuples down. I didn't go through the door. I don't know what Jesus looks like. And Mary's like, well, all right, well, I'm taking this kid too. And then all the king's court is just like, well, that's two babies she's eating. She's a baby eater if ever I saw one. And then they do the thing a third time. Mary's there. She opened the door. No, I didn't open the door. I thought then I'm taking this baby. So now she's like 21. Everyone in the kingdom thinks she's eaten 3 babies. The king, to his credit, I think didn't believe it. But like at some point was like, well, that said, all these babies are missing, and you do go into that room, the baby's gone. And I'm not saying you ate the babies, but like, I mean, can you draw me a picture of where all my kids are? Because my whole purpose as a king is to have heirs. But he's like, I don't believe it, but I can't protect you this time. They're going to put you on trial. They find her guilty and sentence her to die, to be burned at the stake. Finally, she's like, you know what? I guess I can confess my sins. Should have probably said something when the Virgin Mary first found out about my gold finger, or kidnapped and killed 3 of my children, but fuck it. Capricious youth. She said, you know what? I'm sorry, Virgin Mary. I did open the 13th door. And I confess for my sins. And as soon as she does, Mary makes it rain with water, not with dollars. Then puts out the fire and says, okay, that's all I was asking for. She who repents and confesses is forgiven. And she frees the girl from her fiery steak, gives her the 3 kids, and everyone's like, oh, okay, well, I guess she didn't eat the kids. And Mary's like, yeah, so bye. And then everyone lives happily ever after. The end. Michael, do you have thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts about this one. I really like this one. I told the family about this over dinner the other night, and they found it fascinating too. Well, are we going to stick with moral first? Because I don't even know what the moral is here.
We can stick with moral. Yeah.
Don't be a stubborn motherfucker.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I think that's the funny one. It's not even don't lie. And this is just a straight up, I mean, the Virgin Mary being there, she goes to heaven. She's meeting all the apostles. Like, it's just like confession will save.
Yeah.
Is, I think, what, like if you confess, it doesn't matter what you do, no matter how bad it is. If you just confess, you're fine. The other one, maybe, if an overly dressed woman you've met in the woods asks you to give her your baby, go for it. Because it'll probably work out fine in the end for that kid. And that's
so that dovetails my first question, which is, woman shows up in the woods, says, that child is a burden, give her to me and I will take care of her and treat her well. And you say yes, and she takes her to heaven. That sounds an awful lot like she murdered her.
Yeah. Like, there's 2 ways to go to heaven. There's ascension, which even in the Bible, like Jesus ascended into heaven, but like there's 2 of the 4 gospels, only 2 mention it, and only one of them has any actual story with it. And every once in a while someone will ascend, and ascension is just you get to go to heaven without dying. This girl is never mentioned in the Bible as that having happened. There's like 10 people that it's happened to. So yeah, the only other way then is you have to die. And yeah, so we got this poor 3-year-old, other than they gave her to the church to become a nun, maybe the nuns can raise this kid because we're not going to be able to feed her, and that's where the Virgin Mary is. I don't know.
Sure, but then I mean it gets fairly literal about living in heaven. I mean, that's the whole thing is a vehicle to get her to heaven to fuck up, right?
Yeah.
So I do read it literally, but my first reading was like, oh, she takes her to heaven. I was like, wow, that escalated quickly. One thing I did read is that there are versions of this story where instead of Virgin Mary and religious, it's fairies.
Yeah.
So that's one thing worth pointing out too, is that I think this is a Catholicized version of probably an older story about fairies.
Oh, okay, so I can see that, some crazy ass German North stories. I'm not even sure, but yeah, there's definitely, so this is Arn Thompson type 17. the Our Lady's Child type. And generally, it's these stories, Virgin Mary gets a foundling, and the girl does something she shouldn't and lies and lies and lies and lies until the end, and then confession saves her. But yeah, the themes across a lot of those stories, like the religiosity is taken out, which I guess we've read the same thing.
Well, that's my question. Was religion added or was religion subtracted? Which one came first?
That's really neat. You know what? It's funny. I thought that religion came first, but like that you say that, it makes a lot more sense that Mary was added, because that happened all over. The sort of kind of real Christian holidays that we celebrate are the half pagan, changing the calendar around so that like that it would fit with the winter solstice or whatever else.
St. Patrick driving the pagans out of Ireland.
Yeah, I don't know nearly enough. I will admit this. I don't know nearly enough about German Norse religions before Catholicism got there. But I know that 1800. Yeah, I know. I know that. I'm sure that as we go through this, we both will learn quite a bit. I know that where they were was wicked Catholic, though.
Yeah.
And not Fey folk. If you have further notes, we can go into it.
One thing I was wondering about is numerology. I tried looking a bit and didn't find anything, but I found it curious that she's 14. There are 13 doors and 12 apostles. I mean, 12 is 12 tribes of Israel, generally thought to be representative. 13, there's an extra door because that's the one you don't open. But I'm curious why she was 14. Why 14? Why not 16 or 12 or whatever? I found it interesting that there's 14, 13, 12 right in a row.
I don't know anything about numerology. 14 just might be like childbearing. And that's why she's starting to lie. All through her childhood, the 11 years of her being a kid, she was fine and fancy free. And then like the moment she gets even a little bit of responsibility and she's, hits puberty. That's why I thought, and I was even surprised when she gets sent down back to Earth and has to wait a couple of years before finding her husband, because the story one, we figure what the king and the frog king and the girl were both 10
at most,
like like, and just like I like, well, do you even know how to have sex? It's like, yeah, probably.
So so she gets, one thing that's worth noting is that she gets sent down and is there for a couple of years. Her clothes disintegrate over time, just from the elements, but her hair also grows to completely cover her, to cover her lack of modesty. And so I don't know why that choice was made. The king could have just come along and she's still clothed, or, the king comes along later and she is now clothed in hair, basically, which is gross when it sounded out like that. I
had kind of like my thought was sort of like there's sort of a classic Renaissance ideal of beauty where, like the birth of Venus, if you want. You can still have modesty, but also be naked. I'm ready to do my duty as a woman and have a baby or 3 babies and promise not to eat. I promise not to eat those babies, but I guess that, and like, and also, like it's like a hot naked girl in the forest, the virgin in the streets and a demon in the sheets or whatever, like, where she's like, oh, she's still modest, but she's naked and good to go. So
I mean, she did have a baby within a year, or a year after being discovered by the king, so that escalated quickly.
Well, also, he wanted to marry her. He was like, hey, come and marry me. So they get married, and then that even gives them 3 months of trying.
Yeah, I suppose.
Before she has the kid. Well, 2 months of trying before she has the kid.
It's also, I don't remember exactly what the wording was, but when he's like, come to my, he doesn't propose marriage right away, but he's like, come to my castle and I can give you some fine clothes and we'll see how things turn out. And the wording of it is basically the equivalent of like, she gave a barely perceptible nod and he scoops her up in his arms and just takes off.
Well, she couldn't talk.
Oh, I know.
But
nothing emphatic there. She's just like, I guess.
Let's see.
I guess it's better than sleeping in a tree.
This naked, wild ass, blood covered girl I found in the forest. I bet she'd pretty up real nice if we, with a little soap. She's so beautiful. I was correct, and I will marry her. So yeah, as per usual. Not a lot of
gambled and won.
not a lot of autonomy for women.
No, still no autonomy. We'll get there eventually, right?
But we just might.
So behind each of the doors is an apostle.
Okay.
So that one of my immediate thoughts was, is one of those Judas Iscariot?
Has to be.
But so I started looking.
Okay.
After the betrayal, and this is just my lack of biblical knowledge.
Yeah.
After the betrayal, Judas was replaced by Matthias.
Okay.
To keep the number at 12. And I guess he was kicked out of the club. So my assumption is that Judas was not one of these, and that Matthias was.
So Judas was kicked out of the club, but after Jesus had died.
Right.
So who cares? I mean, a bunch of other, like, they went from 12 to 40 billion or whatever the fuck the Christians are now. Like, wait, no, not 40 billion. There's like 10. There was 9 billion people on the planet. There's a billion Christians, right?
It's probably something like that.
Okay, hold on a second.
Wikipedia. How many Christians are there?
Yeah. How many Christians?
Hey Siri.
This 2.2. Oh shit! All right.
2.2 billion.
2.2 billion.
I find that hard to believe.
All right. Christianity is an independent monotheistic religion, and like Islam and Judaism goes back to Abraham. That's an oversimplification, but okay, Google. The the most followers worldwide with over 2.2 billion believers. Although that might be, I don't know how they're counting Christians, because I was raised, my mom's Catholic. Right. My mom was Catholic. My dad was Methodist or something. We never went to church. But I'm like, do I count as part of that 2.2 billion when I'm not really Christian?
Yeah, same. I'm curious to see the survey that was circulated. Yeah, was it? Do you follow Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, or Islam? Pick one.
Pick one. Yeah, and you're like, well, here's the thing about my mom, and they're like, I'm Christianity. I don't know. Call it 1 billion people. I don't even know what we were talking about to get to this, but
the number of apostles eventually increased.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think the official apostles was always 12.
I think I have very strong beliefs that Judas was the one apostle that figured out what Jesus wanted, what was trying to do. Because if Jesus, okay, let's go down this road then. If it's good that Jesus died for our sins, and presumably it's Good Friday, like they call it good, and Judas was the one that helped that happen, why is Judas the betrayer? Especially if everyone knew what was going to happen. If Jesus knew he was going to die for their sins, and then this is a good thing for humanity, so Judas is the one that helped us do that, why is he the asshole?
So this is more that I actually got while I was looking this up too. I never really knew much about Judas beyond Judas the betrayer. And I'm gonna have to paraphrase what I remember, but I seem to recall that there's a significant belief that Jesus put him up to it.
Yeah.
And he's like, here's what I need you to do. And nobody's gonna like you anymore, but it's gotta happen.
There was a Gnostic gospel that's apocryphal now, that when Pope Gregory reorganized the offices of the church and picked the books that then became what we now know as the New Testament, he picked the 4 gospels that we know and cut a bunch of them. And so there's all these Gnostic texts, and one of them is that, like, there was the gospel according to Judas, which was straight up, you're the only one that truly knows what I'm trying to do here, so I need you to do this for humanity. And he does it because he loves Jesus. But I digress.
I seem to recall there are also concepts that he is forgiven in some circles.
I mean, that's the whole idea, right?
Right, but he's also, his name has become synonymous with betrayal.
Yeah, but I mean, look at most of what we recognize as hell or heaven or purgatory comes from the Divine Comedy by Dante. If you actually go and read the Bible, there's no description of like these devils running around hell and 7 circles and all of that. And it's like it's a lake of fire and you burn. That's it. I'll edit into something. Oh, we were talking about the apostles. Yeah. So is Judas one of the apostles? I think so. Why not? I can certainly look it up. We get that as an addendum to the story of the youth who went forth to learn what fear was.
I love that title.
It's so good. They keep getting better and weirder. It's amazing.